Hello and welcome to another episode of Dead by Daylight. This one's going to be a little bit different because the developer update has just been released for all the meta perks, the changes that are coming in one of the later updates for June 2022, as it is stated in the developer update that's going to be coming. The one big thing that I wanted to really cover, because I was just reading a small snippet of it, is the change to the meta perks. I'm going to be doing two videos on it. The first one that we're going to be looking at right now is going to be the killer meta perks, but I'm going to make another video at some point talking about the survivor meta perks and the changes that are coming to them. So without further ado, let's get started real quick. The first perk we're going to be looking at, the Cannibal. Now, you all know Bubba, Leatherface, the guy who hides in the basement in the far corners of the darkness while hiding and making sure everybody gets attacked by him. His perk that's being changed right now, one of the perks that are being changed is Barbecue and Chili. A deep bond with the entity unlocks potentials in one's aura reading ability. After unhooking a survivor, all other survivors' auras are revealed to you for 4 seconds when they are further than 40 meters from the hook. Each time a survivor is hooked for the first time, gain a stack up to 50%, and it goes up to 100% once it reaches tier 3. That is being changed. While it is overly powerful, mainly because it can show not only the people that are far away, but also the stacking ability, they're changing it to where they reduce the grind of the blood points by 75%. So they're removing the blood point factor. And while it's not going to change up anything relatively needed for distance in which you can see a survivor. The next killer we're actually going to look at real quick is going to be the Hag. And the perk we're going to be looking at real quick is going to be Hex Ruin. While the generator is not being repaired by a survivor, it will immediately and automatically regress repair progress at 100% of the normal regression speed, up to 150 and 200%. The change they are making now, to lower it down with all the changes, they're going to reduce the regression speed back down to 50%, 75%, and 100%. And as a bonus, the kind of a major nerf on top of that, whenever a survivor is killed, Hex Ruin will automatically deactivate. So after the first survivor is taken out, I do believe by that regard, you will no longer have Ruin once the first one is knocked off the... The next killer we're going to look at for their perk is the Clown. And the perk in question is going to be Goes the Weasel. After hooking a survivor, the next generator you damage instantly loses 25% of its progress. Normal generator regression applies after the damage generator action. It is active for 35 seconds after the survivor is hooked. I don't remember exactly what the bonuses are. I'll add it in afterwards. But the changes that they're going to give to it based on this, because now for kicking generators, it'll take off 2.5% of the maximum progress when you kick a generator. We decided to tone down some numbers to compensate. This perk will now remove 20% of the generator's current, not total progress. So regardless of how much it is, it's going to take off 20% plus 2.5. And it will make it very effective against generators that are nearly done, but weaker against those with a small amount of progress. The next perk we're going to look at is on the Plague. And the perk in question on her, as you would probably guess, is going to be actually Corrupt Intervention. 3 generators located furthest from you are blocked by the entity for 80 seconds at the start of the trial. And it goes up to, I do believe, 100 seconds and then 120 seconds. Survivors cannot repair these generators for the duration. Affected generators are highlighted with white. The perk will deactivate it once a survivor enters the dying state. So anytime between that 80 seconds to 120 seconds, when the first survivor goes down, it's automatically taking away the entity's block. The next perk we're going to look at is on the Hillbilly. Again, keeping with the generator change to it, we're going to look at Tinkerer. When a generator is repaired to 70% repair progress, it triggers a loud noise notification and you are granted the undetectable status for 12 seconds. The change they are making to Tinkerer is that Tinkerer can now only activate once per generator, but with the base charges increased to 90, and killers will have extra time to approach. The next perk we're going to be looking at is Noed. Once the exit gates are powered, if there is a dull totem remaining on the map, this hex is applied to it. While this hex is active, survivors suffer the exposed status effect and your movement speed is increased by 2%, 3%, or 4% depending on the level of the perk. The change they are making to it, survivors will now see the hex totem's aura within 4 meters upon activation. This range increases to 24 meters over the course of 30 seconds, which is going to be absolutely huge. It's going to make it a lot harder for any killer that is too far away from the totem to get rid of it rather quickly. While it is very strong right now, it's going to actually be harder for the killer to maintain that progress, especially for those like Bubba or Wraith that rely on it for certain builds that they're working on. The next perk we're going to look at is actually on the artist, and the perk is called Pain Resonance. At the start of the trial, up to 4 random hooks are changed into Scourge hooks. You see their auras in white. Anytime a survivor is hooked on a Scourge hook, the generator with the most progress explodes, instantly losing 9% progress, and will start to regress. Survivors repairing the generator will scream, revealing their location. Because of how strong it is, especially when you combine it with other perks, what they are going to do is they are removing the loud noise notification. Instead of exploding, the affected generator will now spark upon losing progress, and survivors will no longer scream. We believe this will ensure Pain Resonance remains a strong regression perk while limiting its informational aspect. So now, with that being said, Pain Resonance will no longer be able to... Pain Resonance will no longer be able to combo with a lot of perks. For example, Dead Man Switch. I was watching a Demi Plays episode earlier, and I was just looking into that. So, having a combination with Undying, Ruin, Pain Resonance, and Dead Man Switch, having something like that will definitely make it a lot harder, specifically. Now, those are the meta perks that are getting changed. There's going to be a bunch more coming out, but right now, that is the killer side of the meta perks that are going to be changed. So, the first non-meta perk is going to be on Doctor. The perk in question is going to be Overcharge. Overcharge a generator by performing the damage generator action. The next survivor interacting with that generator is faced with a tremendously difficult skill check. Failing the skill check results in an additional 3, 4, 5% loss of progression. Succeeding the skill check grants no progress, but prevents the generator explosion. The changes that will be for Overcharge is... Overcharge will cause a kick generator's regression speed to grow from 100% to 400% over the course of 30 seconds. Survivors will want to stop this generator from regressing as soon as possible. What? Doctor, you're getting an absolutely massive buff on your perk. And it's not even meta. It's about to be once this patch releases. Dear God, man. The next non-meta perk is actually Eruption. I don't know this, so we're going to be reading this together. After kicking a generator, its aura is highlighted in yellow. Whenever a survivor enters the dying state, every affected generator explodes, losing 6% worth of progress and continues to regress. Any survivor repairing a generator when it explodes will scream and suffer from the incapacitated status effect for 12 seconds. It has a cooldown of 30 seconds. The changes is that they have upped the generator regression penalty to 10% instead of 6% starting out. Incapacitation will now be increased to 15, 20 to 25 seconds. So while the perk itself is getting buffed with regression, it's also getting a bonus to incapacitation. It does not say anything about the cooldown being changed, so that's actually a big old buff for Nemesis. The next on-meta perk is actually going back to Bubba, or Leatherface. It's actually going to be for Knockout. Survivors put into the dying state by your basic attacks are not revealed to other survivors when they are standing outside of a 32-meter range. Survivors put into the dying state by your basic attacks crawl 50% slower for 15 seconds, and during this time, survivors are affected by the blindness status effect. The change will now cause survivors to crawl 50% slower for 15 seconds and reduce the recovery speed by 25%. You will now crawl 100% slower for 15 seconds. And you will now be reduced in recovery speed by 25%. So that actually counters Unbreakable. And it also counters Tenacity when you combine those two with Soul Guard. Because whenever a survivor comes back up from Unbreakable, or if they are hexed for the effect of Soul Guard, they could easily get the endurance effect because of the healing speeds, and the crawl speeds because of tenacity. With this new knockout, it'll actually make it very difficult for the survivor to not only get back up faster, but for them to crawl even slower, so that way the killer can find them quicker. The next non-meta perk is actually back on the clown, and the perk in question is actually Phobia. Survivors within your terror radius have a 30% penalty to healing progress speed. The change that is going to be is Phobia will now increase the speed of skill checks by 50% on top of its current effect. So while it is 30% slower in this aspect, up to 35-40%, the speed at which the meter moves for the skill checks is going to be 50% faster. That's going to hurt a lot. The next perk is actually back on the Plague. Dark Devotion. You become obsessed with one survivor. Hitting the obsession with a basic attack transfers your terror radius to the obsession for 20 seconds. It sets its radius to 32 meters. During that duration, you gain Undetectable. The survivor with the transfer terror radius is also considered to be inside the terror radius for other purposes. The change to Dark Devotion is that now, instead of a basic attack, will now activate whenever the obsession loses a health state. So if you're Legion and you're using Feral Frenzy and you use Feral Slash, that counts. If you're Nemesis and you're using your Tentacle Strike, that counts. If you are Trickster and you're using the knives, that counts. Huntress, hatchets, that counts. So any killer that doesn't use their basic attack but uses their ability for this reason will now cause this perk to be used a hell of a lot more. The next perk in question is actually Jolt, which I have on Legion. Putting a survivor into the dying state with a basic attack causes all generators within a 32 meter radius instantly to explode and begin regressing. Generators affected by Jolt immediately lose 8% of their progress and can only be triggered once every 60, 50, and 40 seconds. The change is Jolt allows the killer to regress generators simply by downing a survivor. So again, like Dark Devotion, it will no longer be based on a basic attack. To make it more consistent and punish careless survivor plays, we have removed the cooldown. I'm sorry, but removing the cooldown altogether will cause survivors to lose all the progression if the generators haven't been hit yet. So while it is a 32 meter radius still, basic attack is no longer required, and the cooldown is gone. Once again, Nemesis has another change to one of his perks, and this one is Lethal Pursuer. At the start of your trial, the auras of all survivors are revealed to you for 7, 8, 9 seconds, depending on the level of the perk. The change is Lethal Pursuer will now extend the duration of all aura reading effects by 2 seconds. So now instead of 7, 8, 9, it's now 9, 10, 11 seconds. That'll make it that much easier for you to easily find survivors on a big map or make it quicker on a smaller map. Pinhead, or as he is called by Dead by Daylight, the Cenobite, is also getting a change to one of his perks, and this one is actually Scourge Hook Gift of Pain. At the start of the trial, up to 4 random hooks are changed into Scourge hooks. You see their auras in white. When a survivor is unhooked from a Scourge hook, they suffer from the hemorrhage and mangled status effect until fully healed. That was cool and that scared me. The first time the survivor is healed, they suffer a 7% penalty to healing and repairing actions until injured again. Now, the change is, this perk also shipped with safer numbers, so we'll be increasing the action speed penalty to 10, 13, 16%. So instead of 7, 10, and 13, it is now 10, 13, and 16%. The next perk is on the Nurse, and the perk in question is Thanatophobia. For each injured, dying, or hooked survivor, all survivors receive a penalty of 4, 4.5, 5% to a maximum of 16, 18, 20% to repair, sabotage, and totem cleansing speeds. A small change that is being done to Thanatophobia is that each penalty is increased by 0.5%. So instead of 4%, it's 4.5, up to 5, 5.5%, for a maximum of 18, 20, and 22%. The next perk in question is actually Monstrous Shrine. The basement hook grants the following bonuses: 6% faster entity progress, 10% increased difficulty on escape attempts, and 6% increased penalty on escape fails. I know it's 369% for the first and last bonus, but I do believe it's 9, 10, 11% for increased difficulty on escape attempts. The changes is this perk will now convert all basement hooks Monstrous Shrine is now going to become a Scourge hook. Long have we waited. Monstrous Shrine has received a rework. This perk will now convert all basement hooks to Scourge hooks. Additionally, Scourge hooks will now grant 10, 15, and 20% faster entity progression, but only if the killer is not within 24 meters. So while it is getting a buff, it's also getting a penalty. So while it becomes now a Scourge hook, so any Scourge hook perks that you use with it will work now in the basement, but now the entity progression does not get any faster if the killer is within 24 meters of the basement. And so that is the meta and non-meta perk changes that are coming to the killer's side. The meta perks are getting nerfed, but the non-meta perks are getting buffed. I wanted to at least add that in real quick before I end up having to make a third part of the video. So again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the information you had received. Please comment what perk you would think should have gotten a nerf or a buff. And as always, I will see you on the next one. Have a good one, everybody.